This is CNN Breaking News.
Hello and welcome to CNN Newsroom. Thanks so much for joining me. I am Brianna Keilar and we're following breaking news this hour. It is a violent attack at Ohio State University's Columbus campus. A federal law enforcement official believes there was one suspect, that suspect is dead, and that this was predominantly a knife attack where a car was also used at the beginning of the attack. The Columbus Fire Department says at least 8 people have been injured. A shelter in place has just been lifted there at the university, and the scene, we are told, is now secure. But campus officials have told people to avoid the Watts Hall area. That holds the university's materials science and engineering building. The Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives is on the scene right now, as well as dozens of local law enforcement officials. I want to bring in now CNN national correspondent Deborah Farrick and CNN senior law enforcement analyst Tom Fuentes. The real question here now, Deborah, is who is this suspect who we're hearing from sources has now been killed, and why did this happen?
Right, absolutely, and that's part of the ongoing investigation. What we can tell you is that that law enforcement official telling us that they believe that there was one suspect, that one suspect now dead, and that he apparently used a knife, a very large knife. In the words of one eyewitness, it looked like a machete, and apparently the gunshots that everyone heard was a quick-thinking police officer who responded, and after the crowd scattered, according to this eyewitness, that's when the police officer opened fire, shooting several times. The eyewitness saying at least 3 times, and he credits this police officer with very quick thinking that possibly saved a lot of lives. But the gunman, Brianna, as you say, did do enough damage to send 8 people to the hospital with injuries. One of them initially was described as critical, but they're all characterized as non-life threatening. A car was involved. That's possibly why we saw this massive sort of SWAT team sweep of this garage that everybody was sort of focused on. One individual was let out in handcuffs, but it appears he may have just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. But according to the eyewitness, Brianna, this suspect said nothing during the attack. He just had a crazy look in his eyes, according to the eyewitness. But he was silent even as he was shot by that police officer, Brianna.
And Tom Fuentes, we hear, and Deborah's talking about the reports of the shots fired. We don't necessarily know that this suspect even had a gun, right? Those shots that have been reported could have just been from police who were the police officer firing at him.
Exactly. If the witnesses that saw him wielding a machete or other large knife called 911, then the police would get the call and respond. If he was still at the scene with that knife and in the process of possibly stabbing or slashing people, then yes, the police would shoot. And the witnesses outside of the building that heard shots fired didn't know if it was a shooter who was a bad guy or the police doing the shooting.
What questions do you have as you look at what has transpired over the last hour or so?
Well, clearly, do we have a garden variety psychopath that was doing this, and we've had those in the past, or was there some political motive? Was there somebody angry at the school or fellow students, or all the way up to and including terrorism, which we don't know yet, and we won't know that till they identify the suspect, look at all of his social media and interview friends, neighbors, family, and get more background on who is this individual and what might have motivated him.
All right, I'm going to have you, Tom Fuentes, and you, Deb Farrick, stand by for me. I'm going to bring in Anthony Falzarano. He is a senior at Ohio State University. He's joining me now on the phone. So, Anthony, I know that you were in class at the time of this shooting, which may have just been the shooting by a police officer of the suspect. Tell us what you heard.
Yeah, so that seems to be what everyone believes now, that it was just a cop. But we were sitting in class in lecture. It was just starting. And we heard what appeared to be like a couple pops. Someone turned to me and he was like, "Did you hear that?" And I was like, "What?" And it sounded like just pops or like fireworks or something in the background. And then out of nowhere, every single one of us got the Buckeye Alert message, which is an automated system, and it sends us text message and it says active shooter situation, lockdown on campus. And then our teacher ran in and locked the door. And at the same time, we all saw we heard a bunch of sirens and a bunch of like cop cars all just started flooding towards that area, the corner of College and 19th, I believe, or College and Woodruff.
Now, could you see the area, or could you just see the area that police were responding to and where they were staging?
So we could see the area on the corner. I think it happened more towards the front of the building, but we saw the area that they ended up cordoning off, and we saw all the cops and the fire trucks and the ambulances all rushing towards that area.
It was. It happened very quickly that you received an alert. You said it was a matter of moments. So are you? How long do you think it was? A minute, 2 minutes?
It had to have been almost a minute or two. As soon as we started seeing all the police officers, we got the text, which was, very, very thankful. Something you're thankful for, because we got the door locked down immediately.
No, it is phenomenal how quickly you were alerted, obviously keeping a lot of people safe. What then happened, Anthony? Can you tell me? Did
everyone,
what sort of safety measures did you take?
Flooded around the window and started taking pictures and videotaping, and that's when I took a video from my Snapchat, and someone was like, "You should put that on Twitter as well," and so that's what I did. And then everyone just was quiet and turned on their phones and their computers to listen to the news. And then everyone was just, terrified, because there were reports that the entire campus was on lockdown and that there was a bomb threat, and that they were looking for another active shooter, that they were going to look through some parking garages or something. And so it was pretty surreal and terrifying.
Yeah, and a lot of confusion, obviously, happens when these things do transpire. We heard reports that some students at Ohio State were barricading themselves in classrooms. Did you feel unsafe? Were you taking precautions?
We felt pretty safe in our room. I don't know what the mechanism is or when they installed it, but our room had a door. The professor had mentioned that she was the only one who could unlock it from the inside with like a code. So when our door was closed and locked, we felt very safe. Later, maybe 30 or 45 minutes after the incident, someone had stepped outside to go to the bathroom, and there were they said guards in the hallway that told them to get back in the room and close the door. So I don't know where they were stationed. Maybe that was just because we were close when we were in an adjacent building, so maybe that's why they were there. But
all right, Anthony Falzerano, thank you so much. As we're learning from a federal source that the attacker at Ohio State University mainly used a knife and a car in the attack. We still don't know the motive. We don't know the identity of the suspect. I want to bring in now Congresswoman Joyce Beatty. She is the former Senior Vice President for Outreach and Engagement at Ohio State University. So, Congresswoman, you have a lot of connections, of course, to the university. Tell us about your impression of what happened today and what your concerns are.
Well, first, let me just say thank you for reporting this. Needless to say, we are all very sympathetic about what happened. But if there can be good news in this, it is that the university appears to be secured now. Students appear to be safe. I have had the opportunity to talk to the president of the university, Dr. Drake. It appears that there was a car that drove into a crowd of people and caused some orthopedic injuries. We're not sure if that is 8 or 9 people at this time. 4 of them are in our OSU Wexner Hospital and surrounding hospitals. Also, it was reported that the multi-agency police that were involved were very timely, very responsive, and very helpful. What we don't know is what was the motive, the why behind this. But at this point, it is my understanding that at least one, and if there were 2, most of the injuries were from a stab wound that occurred, and one of the shooters, we're saying shooter, but we're not sure, so let's call him one of the individuals who caused the injuries, was apprehended by the police. I've been told from some reports.
Wait, can you repeat that last part? Tell me. That
it has been reported on some of the local news stations. I did not get this from the school that they thought there was a shooter, but we can't determine if it was a shooter involved or if it was actually the police making the shot.
Okay, that's right. They're shooting that police officer who shot the suspect. So I'm wondering, Congressman, if you
suspect has been killed. Yeah.
So you were getting that update. Is that coming from the university? Is that coming
from the university that the scene is secured, that the multi-agency police, and that it was a vehicle that drove into a crowd, and that 8 or 9 of the students appeared to have stab wounds.
Okay.
And that is what they have reported. They are comfortable that the university is secure. And it tells you another thing, the alert system that they put in place certainly is working. From the one student who I talked with, they said they felt safe and they were advised because they got the alert system.
Certainly. No, and that's what we're hearing from students. In fact, I think a lot of us remember, almost 10 years ago covering Virginia Tech, where it was 2 hours
Absolutely.
before an alert went out. And we hear that students got this alert. Everyone got alerts on their text, by text on their phones before they even had police arriving at the scene. So that's
Absolutely.
certainly very, very good news. Congresswoman, stay with me. I want to bring in our law enforcement analyst, Tom Fuentes, and then I'm going to bring you back in as well. But that's a really good point, that this alert allowed people to stay in place. We heard from one student, doors that were locked from the inside. These are key lessons that have been learned over time.
Absolutely. One of my daughters was down the hall from the first 2 people killed
right.
in the Virginia
That's
Tech
right.
shooting. And what happened in that case is that the young female student had just taken out a restraining order on an individual she was dating who ultimately had nothing to do with it. But that's what the police started pursuing until they established that that individual was 50 miles away at a construction site. By that time, the shooter had gone back on campus, went into the engineering building, and then shot an additional 30 people plus
That's right.
himself. So,
And when the alert went out, it was just missing details. So we're certainly seeing that there's a little more responsiveness. Congresswoman, I want to ask you about a report that we're hearing from a 20-year-old student there at Ohio State. And he says that he was there when a man pulled a knife outside between Kofelt Laboratory and the Watts building, that science and engineering building that we're talking about. He said that he was there where the man pulled the knife. It was a large knife. He started chasing people around, trying to attack them. He said there were so many people. Luckily, there were so many people, he couldn't focus on one target. I didn't see anyone get stabbed, but I saw the police officer take down the stabber. He waited till everyone was clear, and the stabber clearly wasn't stopping, took 3 shots to take him down. Stabber had a crazy look in his eyes. And this young man saying that the attacker appeared to be an African-American male in dark clothing. Is that meeting the description of the attacker that you've heard about from officials there?
Other than the physical description, it does match what I was told by the university, that a person in a car got out, did start stabbing individuals with what we're calling some type of large knife, and appeared to have orthopedic injuries to 8 or 9. We're not sure of the exact numbers. At no time did I know the race or ethnicity of that attacker.
Okay. All right, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate you sharing information with us. Very helpful as we learn about what happened there. So what we're taking away from what she said was that it started with a car, the suspect driving into a crowd, it appears. This is what she's hearing from the university. And that there were 8 to 9 that caused orthopedic injuries, so we would expect broken bones or something the like. And then there were 8 to 9 people who seemed to suffer stab wounds, and that seemed to be the predominant injury among folks who had to be transported to the hospital. What do you take away from that?
well, it sounds again like an individual that just was killing anybody or trying to hurt anybody that he could come across. And again, it's going to take getting his identity and doing the background on him, his social media, what he has said to friends and others. And oftentimes, someone suffering extreme sociopathology also has an extreme degree of narcissism. So if they're going to do all this, they want everybody to know that they're doing all this, and you want to make themselves famous in the process. So if that's the case, you'll have social media postings by the person. You'll have him tell possibly close friends, neighbors, if he's a student, fellow students, others, that he's about to do something and become famous.
All right, Tom Fuentes, thank you so much for your insight. We're going to continue to follow this throughout the hour. Still ahead, though, today's other important story, all eyes on potential candidates for the top spots in the Trump administration and the big controversy surrounding one of the biggest names on the list.